a lot of times that's what we'll deal with. He said he's cast it as far as the east is from the west. That never ends. It keeps going. You go north, you go south, you go east, you go west. It will not end. Whether it's in the heavens or the earth, it does not ever meet back up. It said, verse 28, but the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me what thou owest. How many of y'all want to stand before God and let him grab y'all like that? It transitions over in my mind that depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never do. I'm striving for the day that he says, well done, thou good and faithful. Enter in. That's what I've lived for. I've been saved 4 years. I ran from the call as far as I could. I ran as far as the United States Army, and I stayed as far away from this thing as I could. That's my debt that I had to pay. I sat and I prayed with them young people, raise up a generation that's ready to serve him. Raise up in the last days, because we're living in the last days. I've heard it my whole life. Y'all have heard it your whole life. My grandparents heard it their whole life. Anybody that's been in churches heard it's the last day. I've heard people make the argument, well, if it wasn't then it can't be now. It's just getting that much closer. Time's running out. How can I sit there and say, raise up a generation when I'm not willing to stand for that generation? We've got to be ready to stand in the gap and make up the hedge. We've got to show them that Christ paid that debt. He paid a debt we could not. We've got to raise up a generation. These young people that are here tonight, the little ones, we've got to live a life in front of them that they not see us, but see Christ through us. It touched my heart watching. There was a little boy at camp this week. He couldn't have been maybe 4 or 5 years old. He walked in. He had his little King James version kids Bible, had little illustrations and stuff in it, and he would come down to the altar every night. And he'd walk around. He'd lay hands on people, and he may have known what he was doing. He probably didn't, but it moved my heart because he's seeing what mom and daddy's doing. He's seeing what grandma and grandpa's doing, and now he's seeing what other young people that's just a little bit older than him. We had 12, 13-year-olds in the altars weeping and crying before God all week long. They're allowing God to work in their life at a young age. They already understand that the debt was paid. When you come before Christ and you realize what he paid and what we owed. Brother Teddy, you got a bill in your hand. The title of that bill is Sin's Debt. There's a list of different sins on that bill, y'all. It's a very simple illustration, but it makes sense in my mind. There's one that's, what is it, lion is the first one? 20 years. 20 years he have to wait in anguish because he lied. Not just one time. 20 years that you owed. What's the other one?
Disobedience. 10 years.
Can you imagine eternal damnation for 10 years just for disobeying your parents? For not listening to your pastor? That ought to knock on somebody's door. It knocks on mine. How many times have I sat in service and did not listen to what the pastor says? I was too busy worried about what was going on outside that I didn't pay attention to it. I'm sorry. I've been there. I've been in this church and done that. Worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. Worried about, okay, when I get out here, what am I going to go eat? I'm a fat boy, y'all. I love food. What else we got?
Murder. 50 years.
Murder. In America today, the average sentence for murder one is between 35 and 50 years, depending on the degree of the murder. What else you have?
Bad thoughts. 10 years.
I've had a lot of bad thoughts about people, y'all. You think ill of somebody. One of my favorite quotes ever written was by Walt Whitman. He was a theologian that lived in the mid to late 1800s. I put it on Facebook and not many people understood it, but it said, be curious, not judgmental. I pulled up at Starbucks before church this morning and there's probably 25 bikers sitting out there covered in tattoos. And I got out, and my first thought was, I need to lock my truck. I mean, they probably got more money than me, you, and everybody else riding on the bikes. But that was my first thought, and I was like, it was like the Lord chastened my heart. I was like, why would you? And I got out of the truck, and one of them was sitting over there, and he spoke before I could. He had a big smile on his face. He said, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, I don't know this man from Adam's house cat. But he spoke with kindness. He showed the love of Christ. And here I am saying that I'm a Christian trying to live like Christ, but I judged him before I ever knew him. What else on there?
Boasting, 10 years.
How many of us have been way too proud to admit that we've done something wrong? We've stood before people, oh man, I'm this, I'm that. I can do this and you can't do that. I can't build a birdhouse. I'll be honest with you. I've got two men in here that one of them came tonight. He's my carpenter. And I'll tell you, he can build about anything. I can't do that, but he can. I can't boast that I can build anything. I can catch an animal, I can catch a skunk, brother. That's about it. But I've got to watch myself to where I don't become boastful. To where I don't say, hey, I can do this. Because regardless of what I do, I got in a state of prayer. We were talking, me and Brother Teddy, and every time I'm doing a big track out on the farm, and I top this hill, and you can see early in the mornings it's beautiful. The sun's coming up over the trees. It's over a big old pond. And I kept beating myself up, and I was like, man, this is just stupid. I don't know why I'm out here. What am I doing? And I realized I started thanking God for the harvest before I got to the first trap or anything. And I made the statement, and I would pray it every morning, and I still pray it whenever I go out there. I said, thank you for the harvest, whether it's there or not. My work's different. My work gets very hectic, very crazy. But whenever I don't feel like I'm perfect, when I don't feel like everything that I've done is 110%, it ain't perfection, I beat myself up on it. I try not to boast on my work because I can't control what the animals do. I think it's a lot like preaching, a lot like ministering, like trying to lead someone to Christ. I can't control what another human does. I can tell him the debt that he paid that he did not owe. I can tell him what he's done for me. I heard a preacher say one time, he said, you may not believe how I believe or what I believe. He said, but at the end of our conversation, you will know that I know what I believe. It resonated to me because I was at this youth camp all week. I talked to these young people. I had 14 teenage boys. I still ain't recovered. I don't know if I ever will. I had the troublemakers, and they gave them to me on purpose, and they told me they did. But at the end of the camp, I watched God move, and the young man that I had the most trouble with, I watched him get saved on Thursday night. And from Thursday night to Friday morning, it was like a light switch flipped. He came before the throne. He gave everything that he had, and he said, Lord, I'm sorry. The Lord showed him what a father's love was. We just celebrated Father's Day. He showed him that he paid a debt that he didn't owe. He paid something that young man could never comprehend. We couldn't fathom what we owed. We can't fathom what he did on the cross. You can read it. You can read it and read it and read it. And every time that I read the story of the crucifixion, I weep and I cry because I know that there's no way that I could withstand that kind of pain. He did that for us. It made no sense to me. It makes no sense why a perfect man, and Jesus came to earth in man's form. He was the perfect example of a man. He was perfect in every way. Why a perfect man went to the cross for me. I can't comprehend. I can't stand before you today and tell you that I have any idea why he done it other than he loved me. when I think of what we owed and what he paid, how can we not serve him? How can we not raise our hands and worship him? How can we not live for him? How can we not show this world, a dying world, Christ through us? Not by works alone. Because works is part of it. We have to show the world, hey, this is why we do what we do. This is why we serve. This is why we stand in the gap when we make up the hedge. This is why we come to church on Sunday. Why we live outside of these walls. I can't pay that debt, and neither could you. But I'm thankful that he did. I've read the story of hell. I don't want to go there. I've burned my hand on the hot iron. It ain't something that they say the fire burneth black and the worm dieth not. Gnashing of teeth. I've been bit by a kid and it hurt bad enough. You have too, brother. Say, you don't laugh at me. You got 3 girls. I know at least one of them's bit you twice. They even bite all of us if we ain't careful. We stand before him. And we have to stand humble. We have to stand ready to serve, because at the end of the day, I couldn't pay my debt. I could work my whole life, and if I never come before the throne, my debt would never have been paid. But I came before the throne, and I said, you know what, Lord, here it is. I can't pay this debt. I don't comprehend this debt, but it's yours. Whatever you have me to do, I'll do as service to you for my payment. That's the only way that we can even comprehend the payment of the debt, is to serve him. That's all I got, brother.